Day one of Coingeek Week coming to an end. We're going to go for as long as until we get thirsty again. So welcome to James and Brendan from the Tokenized Team. What are you guys' initial thoughts on day one of Coingeek Week?
It's been big picture stuff today, really inspiring. It's nice for me, like what I said in my speech today, what a sense of relief to have sensible people doing sensible things and doing it for business, doing it to take it to the masses. So I feel very comforted with everyone's thinking today and the presentation. So very positive.
Yeah, I was very encouraged to see separate presentations on supply chain and logistics and like automation and industrial uses of the blockchain as a ledger. And I was just having a chat to someone down in the networking room who's here from a company that makes automation hardware. And that's my background. And I just started thinking, wow, you can do so much. You can just cut so much cost out of the rollout of those types of systems and the development time, and it will be a matter of you'll have to build it and then they will come. But once it's built, it's done. So.
There's a lot of talk, James, you pretty much kicked off the conference with stating that Bitcoin is a commodity ledger.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the theme of the day, if you ask me. It seems like we were just talking about this, but people have been thinking very small until it feels like this conference, everyone is thinking very, very big. So what does Bitcoin as a commodity ledger mean to you when building tokenized?
Yeah, so I like to think of it, so commodity ledger, definitely agree 100% with that. I think that is the long-term big value. What I see as the initial mainstream use cases, I think that's really big. The big businesses get behind and get significant utility out of right now is the commercial side of things, like the commercial ledger is what I like. So business is inherently tricky. I mean, you have suppliers that sometimes don't pay on time, or there's disputes, contracts, agreements, even leading up to that, even like when you actually have a quote, but all the conversations to that quote, right? Like the specification part of it, customers asking questions, what should I have? What should I not have, right? Having that all on an immutable chain in like a very formatted, standardized way, I think there's a lot of value there. I think that's something that we're going to see in the future a lot more, and something that a lot of companies will see value in, especially when you consider how much business today is done globally. To have a standard that spans across the whole globe that everyone can connect with and have everything sync up and know what to expect in terms of data allows for a lot of automation, allows for a lot of reduction of costs, a lot more trust can be developed between these parties. There's a lot of exciting stuff, and I think that in the next couple of years, where we're going to see really big businesses start to seriously evaluate it and move a lot of their operations over to it. And it's something that if you look in like the way business is done now with big companies like Amazon and Walmart and things like that, they absolutely use EDI, which is like standardized, formatted data, electronic data, right? So they don't need invoices as a PDF or an email. They get it fed to them so they can process it automatically and immediately fire out all the things they need to fire out to their company and make sure that happens. The problem with that is it only really works with big companies who have so much inertia and gravitas and commercial value that they can force all the suppliers they deal with to adopt their standard. And that's costly, right? You need to have specialists go in and set up their systems to integrate with their own systems and make sure it all works. But you don't have that. It doesn't work for smaller companies so well that are only dealing with other smaller companies and they only do a little bit of business with each other. So you got all these networks of companies that it just doesn't make sense commercially or from a cost perspective to do. But if we had an open source standard protocol, which is what I'm trying to develop, I think right away it does make sense. And then you can get the costs, even like with Walmart, the way they do it, you can drop costs down significantly, but you can actually improve business significantly, like change. I think right now, if you look at EDI adoption in America, which is the only numbers I could find, 25 to 34% penetration. So most companies don't use it. I think that could genuinely be up to 90% quite quickly. I think there's value there.
When it seems like a lot of the benefits you're talking about are a result of one global chain, right?
Yes.
You started off the conference saying that you're a maximalist. I know you guys both have opinions on this. Why are you Bitcoin maximalists?
Do you want this one?
Well, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist because I just, when I started learning about it and really understanding it and looking at it from the perspective of it being the first blockchain that ever came out, and the way it was being developed. And so I came into this space after Bitcoin Cash had forked away from Bitcoin. And I really very quickly got a picture that most or just about all of what else is happening out there is basically fraudulent, or if not fraudulent, based on kind of an incorrect premise of what blockchain is all about. And I started trying to explore what does scaling mean, and just for my own benefit, I did this exercise where I said, okay, well, if we're a 1 megabyte by the end of this year, and we scale at Moore's law, where do we get to? And you kind of get to these kind of crazy outcomes in 80 years where you've just got gigabytes of data per person per second for almost free. And so the outcome, when you think about it like that, is, yeah, we've got to start using it straight away. I mean, for miners to succeed, they absolutely need people to start making, large scale, wholesale use of this as a global ledger. And it's not just going to be transactions. It's going to be records of everything. It's going to be data. It's going to, you're going to get, I'm waiting for basically Wikipedia to be dumped onto the blockchain and to be there forever. We'll never get those emails pleading for money again. The Library of Congress, the Smithsonian, all of that stuff can be cataloged and made available for all of humanity. And I think that's a tremendously powerful tool. And it only works if there is one blockchain. You cannot spread this across. Bitcoin fundamentally is a network. And it's a technological network, a network of mining nodes, wallets. But on the other side of that, it's a network of people. And every mining node is controlled by a person. Every wallet is controlled by a person. It is about peer-to-peer exchange. And again, it only works if there's one blockchain. And so that's why I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. Once I came at it from that perspective, there was really only one way to go. So
Sure.
One thing I really liked in your presentation was you emphasized the definition of token and smart contract, which often become buzzwords in the cryptocurrency space. And I like how I'm not going to say redefined, but re-emphasize what they actually mean, because we've seen these before blockchain even became a thing. Could you maybe elaborate for our listeners,
Sure,
what you meant by that?
Absolutely. I'll answer that in a second. I just wanted to just have a quick thing to say on this one. So for me, what I like about a single Bitcoin or single blockchain dominating is I look at what, in an economics point of view and also an engineering scientific point of view, as the price mechanism as being a tool for humanity, right? Like being able to allocate resources efficiently and knowing where resources should go is incredibly important, right? Like that's what made us a great civilization, in my opinion. So if you think about the problem with communism is they just don't know how much to build of what and what to build, right? And who to get it and stuff, right? So the price mechanism deals that perfectly, right? Very, very efficiently. And what I like about Bitcoin is that having one currency or one system that gives a proper metric or way of defining what market value is to everyone and allowing that price mechanism to work as efficiently as possible is really, really important. So I think to me, that's where I focus my importance on, so to speak. But going back to what you're saying with the smart contracts and kind of like tokens and what they really mean, like in a definition sense. For me, when I started exploring like Ethereum and Bitcoin and like what you could do and all the use cases and stuff, right away I just thought about like this whole Ethereum thing feels wrong structurally, like that in an intuitive sense, it doesn't quite feel right. And I started like thinking back in a philosophical sense, like what is a smart contract, right? Like what does it do? What's the purpose of it? Why are we using it? And what's it going to bring value to it? And what's a token? And really, like contracts are the sort of the key concept that makes all this work. Just the idea of people agreeing to do something and then recording it, so it's formalized, right? So that there's consequences in the future if the parties don't agree or if they don't end up fulfilling what they said they're going to fulfill. And that consequences part is so important because how does consequences get dealt out? By the people, the legal systems, right? Like the courts. And if you don't have those consequences, then contracts mean nothing, right? Like if you go and two drug dealers that are operating in the black market agree to trade heroin for what, 10,000 American dollars or whatever it costs, and they both shake on it and they both write a little agreement. Well, what happens if one of them reneges? Like we all know what happens, right? They go right to violence, right? Like, and that's the only way they can deal with it, because there's no one to say, well, this is what was specified and this is how you're going to deal with it. So
There's no arbitration.
exactly, yeah, or
Well, there is,
informal,
but,
yeah,
yeah.
very informal one. But yeah, that was for me. That's kind of where my thinking kind of led me down. And I started really anchoring that component to it. And then once you sort of understand that part of it and understand the value that an issuer gets from issuing tokens, for example, which the kind of use case of giving tickets and shares and all that kind of stuff, they really want their tokens to be something that adheres to the contract, because they want investors, they want people to buy their stock, they want their company's stock value to be high. So the last thing that everyone would do is mess with the integrity of that. And that's kind of like, it's an economic incentive that's really, really, really powerful and clear. And that's how Bitcoin works, right? Like that's how it's an economic system. Miners all really want their system to be a good investment and for them to make a lot of money in the future. So they do not mess with the basic incentives of it. They don't mess with the rules of it, so they can perpetuate through time. And the same thing exists for an issuer. So when I sort of worked my way to that sort of thinking, having the issuer manage this smart contract, not only does it make perfect sense, the incentives all align, but then it's just also the cheapest way, right? Like it's by far the cheapest way. You can't compete in any other system, which is fantastic for everyone involved. And yeah, that's nail it for me. There's no other reason to do anything else, in my opinion. So
Well, and you have an emphasis. Clearly, the tokenized protocol has an emphasis on being legal, right, and applying by the law. Craig made a joke in his presentation about how if you have a share of a house and the chain splits, you can't sell your house on one chain and live in it on the other, right? How important? I think you mentioned that when you first heard him talk about real estate and equity in real estate, that kind of drove you to think about making a tokenization protocol.
Yeah.
How is this different way of thinking compared to the rest of the cryptocurrency community? How has that influenced what you're doing, and what do you say to the people that think you guys are actually doing this incorrectly, that think you should be doing this in a quote unquote permissionless manner?
Well, I would say is look what they're doing now, right? A lot of Ethereum smart contracts now are upgradable, or they got backdoors in them, right? Like even Coinbase is, I actually don't know the full technical details. I've just heard from reports, some people said to me, but I believe Coinbase's stable coin they just released is an Ethereum ERC20 coin. And they've got a backdoor in it to be able to do everything that we'd want to be able to do on ours, so that it's lawful.
Wow.
Right. So what's the point, right? What are they even doing there? They're just wasting money and making a product that's more expensive for everyone. So
one of the things that really struck me about tokenized when James first showed it to me was in the white paper, even in the very early drafts, there was an extremely strong focus on how this was a token system that was built to allow those regulatory bodies and lawyers to be certain that what they were doing was upfront and legal, and that there would be no issues with that, and to actually build that into the protocol. And I think the other thing that Tokenized is doing that's very different is there is no tokenized token. There's no ICO.
Yeah.
Right. It's about enabling other businesses to create their own value token and trade that on chain and run that as a service. It's not about, there's no exit scam, and that was one thing that was super important. I felt for us too.
I will say, you guys had a demo booth downstairs. I was actually blown away that it was there. It worked. It's on mainnet. That is very rare when it comes to tokens and cryptocurrency. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it evolve, and I think you said that was not even the final release.
That was a proof of concept. So we finished that in August, and we weren't a fan of electronic cash, so we ditched it right away and started rebuilding from scratch. So we got a desktop app as well as a mobile app coming and all that. That's fully built up from the ground up for us, and it's going to be a fully featured wallet beyond what anything we've seen today or in the market today. a fully featured exchange platform, a fully featured contract manager, and many, many other things I won't reveal yet. But I'm excited about it. And we've made like a lot of progress. The one thing that I think will hold us back on our deadline, which I hope will be February, is the legal side of things. It might take a bit longer.
Sure.
But yeah. So.
Well, I will say, very impressed with what you guys were even just showing with the Electron Cash demo downstairs.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah.
Let's wrap this up and go network and get some drinks. But maybe because this is kind of the hot topic of the conference, why did you choose Bitcoin SV? Even just personally, even not from a tokenized platform, but why personally do you support Bitcoin SV?
Well, the philosophy, the strategy, the focus on mainstream adoption, which is to me what they're doing. All the key concepts, and stability is really important for us. So
I mean, my background, like I said, was industrial automation. I've done a lot of work with protocols and linking machines together, getting them talking. And like Craig was saying with Novell, if you keep changing that, and every year the engineers have to go out and relearn everything and rebuild everything because you made some, subtle or non-subtle change, like what we're seeing, that just destroys any value that you've put into that, because you're basically having to repeat the effort of engineering that system every time. And for me, that's just a completely non-sustainable way to make a global ledger. You can't have something that's built on this shifting platform and actually create value.
Yeah, it makes the engineer in me cringe to think about all the efficiency of whenever you do things.
For anyone who's building on ABC, I implore you to look at what they're doing and evaluate what your project is, and think to yourself, honestly, are these changes going to have a positive impact on what you're trying to do, or is it something that is going to create more work, more effort, really destroy that? Every minute that you spend working on a project is a minute that you can't replace. Time, you only get it once. And if you're having to go back and repeat all that work because something changed that destroys what you built, that's value that's gone from your project.
Yeah.
And so that's why, for me, SV is definitely the right way to go.
It's Bitcoin.
It's Bitcoin.
It's all there is to it.
100%. Ask anyone, all I'll ever say is all I want is Bitcoin. It's just Bitcoin, pure Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you. James, your presentation was great. Everyone that did not see it, it'll probably be up at some point. You can watch it. I thought the presentation was a great way to kick off the conference. Brendan, I'll say to you, I've had many conversations involving you on the internet, and you've taught me a lot. You're a very insightful person to talk to. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thanks for having us.
And congrats again on
congratulations.
Solutions.
Wow, it's pretty wild.
We'll wrap it up there.
That's good.
Way to wrap it up.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.